I decided to make this video mostly because it absolutely sounds like the end of a movie, which is exactly what this video is about. So I was explaining to my friend the song King for a Day by Pierce Seville featuring Helen Quinn. Now this is a emo slash screamo song, and there's some lyrics in it that I was listening to. And I was like, wow, this sounds like a end of the day scenario. And apparently this song actually regained popularity like a year ago, like on TikTok. And so just listening to some of the lyrics, like, and if the bass shakes the earth and the ground, we'll start a new revolution now. You know, the Father talks about there's going to be earthquakes in the last days, and how you will be able to notice the beginning from the end. Of course, there's an end, but then there's also a new beginning, which would make a revolution. And then one part's talking about Hail Mary, forgive me, blood for blood. And so we were discussing the color red, and I told my friend, I was like, it represents like violence, it represents blood, it represents war. And in that song, there's a part that says, and I might be saying it out of order, but red for the wealthy, red for the cancer, red for the drink that's mixed with suicide, everything red. And someone had said something like, oh, well, it might be representing Russia. I mean, someone else said it might be representing China because both those countries use red in their flags. And so we are definitely heading into what is probably going to be World War III, and it's probably going to be including China and Russia and the U.S. The U.S. is likely going to fall. Yeah. Anyway, I had a vision the other day, and I don't even know if I'm saying the right vision now. I had a few visions. So one was like, I was on a beach and there was just a giant tsunami coming, like it was huge. I keep saying 200 feet high, but I don't know how high it was. And I just remember praying a bit, and I just saw the water, like, it went up to just like a little bit below my calf. So I felt like the Father was showing me, like, okay, yeah, the water is going to come, but it's not going to overtake you type deal. And so, anyway, I think something like that is going to happen to the U.S. Yeah. But I didn't even get on this video to really talk about that. I mean, this is what's coming. The red represents the violence, and it represents the war and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, man is kind of at each other's throats right now. Like, I'm constantly being attacked by demons or fallen angels or people that don't know what they're talking about, whether they're Christian or non-Christian. All the time. It's just heavy persecution, and it's probably going to get worse. And I've noticed other people just losing their patience, and it talks about that in the last days. People are going to be haughty and lovers of self. They're going to clash heads with other people because they're going to be without natural affection. You know, they're not going to have love for other people. They're not going to have love for themselves. This is the red. This is the violence. This is the war, you know, that's going on. But I wanted to mention this guy who, just in this group, I'm always arguing with people because of their church doctrines. And this surprised the crap out of me. You know, there was a guy on there who was trying to argue with me concerning some doctrine, and I was about tattoos. The Father has not called us to get tattoos. He said in the Old Testament, do not put markings in your flesh for the dead, nor tattoo yourself. Do not make writings in your flesh. The source is not from the Father. The Father would never encourage you to do such a thing. It came from fallen angels. That's where it's from. If makeup is not good and it came from fallen angels, why do you think a tattoo would be any better? I don't know. And so this guy was arguing with me about it, and I had wrote this whole letter pretending that I was him because he had brought up something about mixing fabrics. And then I was like, it says wool and linen. Like, get this scripture right, because people just repeat what they hear and they don't actually look into it for themselves. And so some other dude had like laughed at my comment, so I tagged him as if he was part of the letter, because people think they're smarter than the Word of God. They think that God didn't know what he was talking about when he said don't mix wool and linen, yet you love God, but you think you're smarter than him. And so this dude happened to respond on something else that I said on a different post, and so I just tagged him again because he's trying to be slick. And he was basically like, well, what do you follow? Do you follow the Talmud? Do you follow the Tanakh? Do you follow the Torah? Or are you a New Testament follower? And I like wanted to be like, face palm, like, oh my gosh, you guys make it clear you do not understand any of this, any of it. And I said to him, I was like, You guys are constantly trying to put people in a box concerning these things, concerning your doctrines that you repeat everywhere that are doctrines of men. They're not even doctrines of God. And that's why when I was speaking to the other person, he couldn't draw the connection between you can't be a Gentile and have the law written on your heart, and you can't enter the kingdom of heaven being a Gentile, because there's 12 gates and a Gentile gate is not one. I got 12 gates and a Gentile gate's not one, said the Father. So you can't do that. Say that you know, the law was for the Jews. We don't have to abide in not getting tattoos anymore. That was for them. And I'm like, okay, the Messiah said, I did not come to abolish the law. There was only one law available at the time when he said that. And that's the law given to Moses and the prior patriarchs and the patriarchs after that. And so, you know, they can't draw the connections with their man's doctrine. And I'm like, this is a huge issue. Like, I just feel like the whole thing has to be destroyed. And then it was literally like a revelation. This is why the Messiah said, destroy this temple and I will build it up in 3 days. And what ended up happening the other day, that idol that's standing in Brazil, that fake Christ, ended up getting struck by lightning. And we were all like, I think God is going to destroy the idols at this point and Israel is about to be judged. So this is what's going to happen. Persecution is coming. Judgment is coming for the church, which are really Israel, and they think they're still Gentiles and they don't have to keep the law. They don't know, because their church doctrine is getting in the way of understanding the Father's doctrine. When the Messiah came, he said, I come bringing the doctrine of my Father. He didn't say nothing about the doctrine of the Orthodox or the doctrine of the Catholics or the doctrine of the no, he said my Father's doctrine. That's who he said, okay? If you're not following the Father's doctrine, then there's no use, in my opinion, because there's no power behind following man's doctrine. There's only power behind following the Father's doctrine. Excuse me. David said, I've kept your commands, Father, and they've made me wiser than all my teachers. Keeping his commands literally healed me from cancer, anxiety, depression. I thought I was on the spectrum. That went away. Come on. I would not have the van that I have if I did not keep his command of asking and putting it in his hands. Okay? Come on, Abba. But anyway, so they neglect these things. So there was this girl in there, and I think it was really a demon, to be honest, because it just was a demon. But she was trying to say my testimonies weren't true, and I was like, red for the wealthy, red for the drink that's mixed with. I'll try and see it. Now I understand where screamo and emo music comes from, the heart that it comes from. Because I'm over here losing my religion. like that song from the 80s, seriously, because these people will drive you nuts. But, you know, we have to adhere to the word, and Proverbs is a really good book concerning how to respond to people in these end days, because they will drive you insanity. And that's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to drive you insane. But to be fair, it does say the 2 witnesses will be dead in the street for 3 days. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the Father is going to destroy this whole church system. It's fake. It's not of him, even though many people worship him. They don't worship him necessarily in spirit and in truth, but he is still going to spare a lot of people. Because he's a gracious God. He's merciful and he's loving, and he just wants to refine us. You know, he's not trying to kill us. He doesn't even wish for the wicked to perish. But the whole thing has to be torn down and built back up, because it's not the truth. And so that's going to happen in these coming days. You know, there's going to be refinement by fire. The 3 days of darkness, it's the same thing as, I guess you can say the Passover. So this is what's going to have to happen in order for his people to be refined. There's not going to be any more doctrine of men, you know. There's not going to be any more, well, I think this. You know, I'm sitting here on Facebook going back and forth with this woman. The lady wants a smaller waist and a bigger butt and all this stupid stuff. And I'm just like, are you going to live by your beauty standards, or are you going to live by the Father's? Because we can want all those things, but what purpose do they serve in the end? If your heart's not right with the Father, if that beauty is not coming from the inward parts, then there's no purpose to what you're doing outwardly. That's why the Father said, do not look on the outside of the cup, but clean the inside. Actually, I think he was talking about the temple. Don't look at the gold on the outside of the temple. Think about that which sanctified the temple on the inside. So she's so worried about her appearance that she's missing the point. We're in the last days. There's no time to be overly concerned about your appearance. Why are you worried about this? It just seems silly to me, because it is silly. So don't be distracted, y'all, because there's a lot of distractions out here. The enemy's trying to get us all to fall into our flesh, and I'm not gonna lie, he's doing a pretty good job of it. But, you know, the Father is still our shield and our buckler, and we can turn to him, especially in this hour And that's the only way that we need to be going. So a lot of people are going to end up having a huge issue as well, because these doctrines of men, they turn to their churches, they turn to their pastors, they turn to their priests. They don't turn to the Father. They don't ask him. How is he supposed to protect you